I was recently talking to my wife, and we were going down memory lane talking about all of the amazing experiences and moments that we've had since meeting in 2006. And I had a little aha moment. And here's what it was. When you look back initially on something that was major in your life, at first it seems very daunting, because there's a huge tapestry of stuff that has gone on. But if you dig a little bit deeper, what you're going to find is the trajectory, the ultimate success of things really comes down to a handful of moments, a handful of key decisions. And the same principle applies to your career. No matter what line of work you're in, what your growth trajectory is, or where you ultimately want to end up, there's going to be just a handful of decisions in your career, maybe 5 or so, that are really going to play such a tremendous role in terms of the speed with which you reach it, whether you reach it at all, and what problems you face along the way. So in those moments, it becomes crucially important that you don't let your decision making fall into disarray, or that you fall privy to biases, and that you can approach the decision in a way that maximizes the odds of your making the right decision. So I want to give you a couple of tips that you can use. This is a way to look at any career decision that you make and really run it through a filter that is going to maximize the odds of a really great outcome. And I'm going to do it from the point of view of talking about what some of the major sort of pitfalls here along the way. And I have fallen privy to many of them, I promise you. So the first one are mental shortcuts. Now, we do this all the time. If you've read Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, he talks all about that, about how, we will use, because we live in such a complex world, we'll use little markers or little shortcuts to sort of reach a decision. And when we do that, there's like a click word that happens in our mind. We shut off the analytical part of our brains, and we just sort of say, okay, boom, that's going to happen. Here's an example. I have always imagined myself being a part of the Facebook team. And working with Facebook is something that I'm really, really passionate about. And I finally got an opening there. And I interviewed, and even though in my gut, I'm starting to get some real warning signs, like how they do business or the way in which they are going to treat me or what my growth path is there in terms of the position, even though I've got some real, red flags going there, that doesn't jive with my vision, and ultimately this is what I wanted, this is what I'm going to do. Yes, that's a go. And then there's surprise there when 6 months or a year later you look back and you say, what the heck was I thinking? It just wasn't a good fit. I should have listened to my gut. So sometimes the gut helps, sometimes the gut hurts. But what you absolutely do not want to do is make a decision with your gut and only your gut. I don't care if you feel 100% certain in the rightness of your instincts here. That is a huge reason why decisions are made poorly. So here's a great trick for that. When you have a key career decision to make, I want you to start gathering data before you've considered your feelings. Don't start by considering your feelings. Don't start by asking yourself, what do I really feel? What does my gut say? No, you say, I'm not even thinking about my gut or trusting my gut. It's an unreliable source. I'm just going to go out there, start gathering data. Start gathering data about the information about a company, about the people that you're going to be working with, media coverage, social media coverage, Glassdoor reviews, talk to people who are in the company, connect with them, initiate some conversations. People are much more willing to help than I think you are. Than you may assume. Gather all of that information, be led down the path of that information, and start looking at it purely analytically, just gathering all of this data, and only then start bringing your emotion into it once you have something else to go on. Because you really can't just trust your gut. You really can't. Your gut is the combination of experiences, insights, fears, vulnerabilities, all this stuff, and you need to bring in the other part of your mind before that gets involved. So that's number one. Step number one is gather data before considering your feelings. That's really, really crucial. The second one is bias. And confirmation bias is a big one. That's when we say, oh, okay, I'm going to go gather data, but, working with Amazon is a dream of mine. And here's a weird coincidence. All the data I'm finding just talks about what an amazing company that is and why it's an amazing fit for who I am and all of that. So that's bias, right? Because you're going out there and you're selectively picking information that you think is going to support your case. The most powerful thing that you can do to defeat that, if you're researching an opportunity, right? And you're leaning towards maybe the pro. After you've researched the pro side of things, I want you to create a separate folder, and that's going to be con. And you're going to play the devil's advocate there. So whatever the decision is that you're seeking to make, I want you to, once you've finished researching whatever your natural inclination is, I want you to spend a significant amount of time researching and building the alternate case. Just build it up. No emotion. Build, build, build. The opposite. The opposite. If you want to take a position, you're going to say, here are all the reasons why I should not. Here's why it's a bad idea. Doubts, bad reviews, whatever it is, right? You're gathering all of that case there. And then now that you have that, you can consider it in a different way. So playing devil's advocate in terms of the information that you gather and the case that you gather is very, very, very crucial towards fighting that sort of bias that's going to creep in there. The other thing, too, is to honestly ask yourself, do I have a broad enough perspective to make this decision? In my wheelhouse of career coaching and employment and resumes and LinkedIn for job search and all that stuff, I have authority. I've spent a long time, over 10 years working in that field, working with others, collaborating, learning, really doing that. But I can't jump into some totally unrelated business and feel like I can sort of start making critical decisions there because I just don't have the background. And a lot of times we will come up against decisions that are beyond us. And there's no shame in that. You're not expected to know how to make every single decision under the book. And so a really key thing to defeating bias is to just be honest with yourself and say, can I make this decision? Like, can I accurately make it? I mean, is there any way that I'm going to be able to bring in the data, the insights, and stuff like that I need to really make an informed decision? And if not, that's when you need to seek out someone else. That's when you need to seek out a mentor or someone who has helped further your career and maybe further along. That's when you need to bring in someone else who may be able to fill in those gaps, because that could be a really big reason. You're pushing forward on a decision, and 8 out of the 10 elements that you need to consider, you're not even aware of. So ask yourself that. Really be honest to say, is my experience broad enough to really make a good decision here? Here's one more, and this is a big one. I call it the vacuum, and it's especially damaging for career decisions. It's damaging for pretty much all of your life decisions, but it can be devastating for your career. And that's this weird thing that we have that says we have to do this alone. Particularly when it comes to a job search, there is this feeling that we need to do this alone. I have to do this alone. I think there's like a false sense of shame that comes into when you're looking for a position, especially if you're unemployed or you're about to be terminated, where you say, this is an embarrassment. I just want to keep this to myself. Mistake, 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 mistake. And when we're talking about major career decisions, that's when you really, really have to be careful to get out of that vacuum. You've got to get out of it. Do not make any kind of a decision if you're the only person you've consulted with. And your spouse, of course, that should go without saying. But the other one that I would recommend is called trying your decision out on a friendly. Now who is a friendly in this case? This is someone who knows you. They know your line of work. They have a vested interest in wanting to protect you and wanting to make sure that the outcome is good. If you've reached a decision before actually going public with it, go to this friendly and say, hey, this is what I've decided. Here's why. Does that make sense to you? And really listen to the feedback. Again, don't let the bias creep in there where you're just waiting for them to say, yes, 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 of course, that's perfect. That's exactly what I thought. No, really listen. And if maybe the answer is totally not what you want to hear, well, good. You're going to say thank you no matter what, because it's the intelligence and it's the insights that are really key as you're making a decision. That can really make a big difference. I can't tell you the number of times when I've brought up a decision with a trusted friend of mine, and they'll look at me and say, Anish, you're crazy. I don't know how you got there, but it's a real leap. And in the moment, I'll be like, "Oh, pff, you don't understand me. You don't understand the brilliance of what I've come up with." But once the ego fades away, and the ego which will warp any of your decision making, once you feel that attack and you let it pass and the ego passes a little bit, then you can look at it with clear eyes and you say, yeah, maybe you're right. Almost without exception, when people have brought up something where their conclusion is very, very different from mine, it's ego.